it does require consistent professionalism, adaptability, and perseverance. It hasn't been simple, and it hasn't been easy. I'll say that. So what began as a life-changing event became a catalyst, really, for redefining my identity and discovering a deeper conversation with the natural world. So moving from walking in gardens to navigating them in a wheelchair changed my perspective physically and emotionally. And it invited me to reimagine what inclusive design could be. I often encounter spaces where people didn't expect a disabled designer to lead. So rather than a barrier, I use this to challenge perceptions and open doors for others. And instead of hiding my disability, I chose to embrace it as part of my story. It became a powerful tool in advocating for inclusive design and representation in the media. And my lived experience shaped my approach to design, proving that gardens can be both beautiful and functional, that everyone, regardless of ability, can enjoy and use. And there are moments of uncertainty and resistance, but each challenge reinforced my belief that representation matters and that seeing yourself reflected in media can change lives. So becoming the first wheelchair user to present gardening on national TV wasn't just a personal milestone. It helped shift public perceptions of disability in mainstream media, especially with regards to gardening. So through my journey, I suppose I've demonstrated that gardens are not passive spaces. They are restorative, empowering, and accessible spaces that can foster independence and joy. And I suppose my career has helped spark important discussions about inclusivity, well-being, and the healing power of nature across design, broadcasting, and society in general. And finally, I would say that my journey hasn't ended. I'm still here. Every project, every broadcast is an opportunity to prove that good design includes everybody, and that difference is not a limitation, it's a source of creative strength. I would say, firstly, that instead of viewing limitations as endpoints, I treat them as prompts to be innovative, to adapt, and to rethink what's possible. So in other words, thinking outside the box. So my experience with disability didn't close doors, it opened new ones. So it guided me to champion inclusive design that benefits everyone. So barriers become pathways when the question moves from limitation to collaboration, finding creative routes forward rather than accepting a closed gate. Each accessible feature I introduce isn't a compromise, it's an improvement, I think, that invites more people to connect with nature, independence, and joy. And when I encounter a space or system that isn't accessible, I use it as a fuel to redesign a better, more inclusive future and space for all. And my wheelchair isn't a barrier, it's a vantage point that gives me a unique understanding of movement, comfort, and human interaction with landscape. I always say that I've got this unique perspective, having gone from being able to walk, now being in a wheelchair. And being visible in media and design is not just about personal achievement, as I say, it's about creating a pathway for future generations to feel seen and supported. So every challenge is a moment of choice, I would say. But just pause in order to pioneer, and my path has always been really to pioneer. So I would say sort of initially overcoming early career challenges, so navigating the competitive world of professional garden design and establishing credibility in a field with many established names, persisting through sort of early setbacks such as projects not being accepted by clients or having differing visions, by learning to adapt and innovate rather than just give up. Also adapting, I suppose, to public media demands, transitioning from a hands-on garden designer to presenting on high-profile platforms like BBC Morning Live and Gardener's World. required resilience in learning new skills, handling live audiences and dealing with scrutiny, managing the pressure of live broadcasting while maintaining authenticity and expertise, often under unpredictable conditions like weather challenges or last minute schedule changes. I suppose there's also sort of sustaining a multifaceted career. So, in other words, balancing work as a garden designer, author, media presenter, and public speaker, each with differing expectations and deadlines. This has really demanded mental stamina and organization. Thankfully, I'm a little bit OCD when it comes to organization. I think resilience also allowed me to sort of maintain creativity and innovation across all the platforms without burning out, showing persistence and a passion despite those competing demands. There's also sort of embracing that criticism and learning from those mistakes. So accepting that public facing work often does invite criticism. So whether that's from viewers, readers or clients, and then using that feedback constructively to refine design style, media presence and my writing voice, but also learning to treat setbacks as opportunities to evolve rather than discouragement, demonstrating, a growth, I suppose, in mindset, really. But there's also navigating health and disability challenges. So incorporating resilience in managing my own personal health or disability related obstacles while sustaining an active hands-on career in gardening. Also advocating for accessibility and inclusivity in garden design, turning my own personal experiences into expertise that informs practical and thoughtful design solutions. Also innovating, I suppose, in the face of environmental change, and that's sort of one of the biggies sort of now. So responding to climate change, biodiversity loss, and evolving gardening trends sort of requires adaptability, persistence, and creative problem solving. And resilience isn't evident in my ability to integrate sustainable practices into design work. It's about educating audiences about ecological responsibility. And I suppose when it comes to publishing and writing, completing and promoting books involves sustained focus and resilience in the face of rejection, editorial feedback, and of course that highly competitive publishing industry. I suppose it demonstrates my commitment to my vision and my voice, persisting until projects are realized successfully. I suppose I'm continuously cultivating relationships as well within the gardening community and the media and publishing sectors, often requiring patience and persistence on my behalf. And resilience has helped, I suppose, maintain my credibility and my trustworthiness as both a designer and a public figure. But I also love giving back, so mentoring and being involved in community engagement. So using that resilience to foster an online and a real world gardening community, or responding positively to diverse audience needs, questions and criticisms. Also staying relevant is really important in an area of social media, podcasts and digital gardening content. So resilience really lies in embracing new platforms, technologies, while remaining true to my expertise and values. And then I would say, lastly, it's about sustaining reputation and influence. So long-term success in multiple areas, design, media, writing, and education, it does require consistent professionalism, adaptability, and perseverance. And resilience has underpinned my ability to maintain credibility and influence despite those industry fluctuations. Well, first of all, I hope they enjoy them. That's one of the main things. But I suppose inspiring them to engage with gardening is one of the big ones. So encouraging audiences to explore gardening as a creative, therapeutic, and an enjoyable activity, and also demonstrating that gardening is accessible to all, regardless of experience, space, age, ability, or resources. Also appreciation for design and aesthetics, so highlighting the beauty, balance and artistry, which is inherent in thoughtful garden design, and also showing how design principles can transform outdoor spaces into functional, harmonious environments. But also raising awareness of sustainability and ecology, so educating on the importance of biodiversity, climate resilience and sustainable practices in gardening, and inspiring audiences to make choices that support pollinators, wildlife and long-term ecological health. I suppose there's also practical knowledge and skills, so providing clear, actionable advice that audiences can implement in their own gardens, and offering tips on planting, maintenance and design that empower those individuals to go away and take control of their own green spaces. I suppose there's also confidence as well in experimentation, so encouraging people to try new ideas, take design risks and personalize your garden without the fear of failure, and demonstrating the learning through trial, observation and adaptation is part of the gardening journey. There's also that sort of connection with nature and well-being, so emphasizing the emotional, the mental and the physical benefits of engaging with gardens and green spaces, and inspiring audiences to see gardens as spaces for reflection, mindfulness and also community. Gardening is brilliant. You can do it on your own or you can do it in a group. There's also that respect for garden history and tradition, so sharing insights on historical styles, traditional heritage, traditional techniques and cultural influences in garden design, which hopefully allows audiences to go away and appreciate that while integrating modern approaches. There's that empowerment, and accessibility is a big one, so sort of advocating for inclusive garden design that accommodates different abilities and needs, and inspiring confidence that everyone can create these meaningful, functional and beautiful gardens regardless of personal limitations. And then I suppose a passion for continuous learning. I'm still learning. There's so much in gardening to learn, and it's therefore instilling sort of a curiosity for plants, design and ecological systems, and encouraging audiences to keep exploring, asking questions and growing their knowledge over time. And finally, I would say community engagement and collaboration. So in other words, highlighting the social and communal aspects of gardening, from local projects to shared green spaces, and inspiring audiences to collaborate, share their knowledge and build supportive gardening networks. It's one of the most wonderful things about horticulture and gardening in general, is that people just want to impart their knowledge and share it with others.